Well, I'm back. This is part 2 of my Undead Unluck review. The link to the first part of the review will be in the iCard in the top right corner and in the description below if you haven't watched it yet. So where was I last time? Oh yeah, killing God. Sounds like an average Tuesday for any JRPG protagonist, so let's see how they tackle this. Junes informs Andy and Fugo that on one hand, Apocalypse won't give them any more quests until they fill their now open seat. But on the other hand, the 3 months of no quest equals penalty is still active, so the quest to find the negator on repair is given more urgency, so it's off to Brazil! This arc deals with more lore about negators and the duo along with Tatiana hunting for unrepair, but it soon leads to a conflict with a mysterious group. As they're flying to Brazil, Andy explains to Fugo the mission is to infiltrate a mafia-run auction that deals with negators, artifacts, and umas, and it's where they're likely to run into unrepair there. So they shop for disguises when they arrive in Brazil, and I want to point out 2 important moments during this. Fugo's flashback with Junes, and Andy's conversation with Fugo. Starting with the flashback, Fugo actually questions her role in this mission, and Junes explains at first she considered Unluck to be dangerous of endangering the planet, and that's why she sent Shen and Void to kill her, which is a little understandable considering how Unluck could be unpredictable to somebody like her. It doesn't mean murder is the first option though. However, after the battle with Victor, she believes Fugo's Unluck could be powerful enough to kill God. But Fugo needs to strengthen her bond with Andy in order for her Unluck to be efficient in the god-killing plan. Speaking of Andy, after they finish shopping, Andy talks to Fugo about Victor, saying that he isn't sure that Victor won't return in the future. Yet Fugo reassures him that if that happens, she'll use her power to save him again. Later that night, Fugo and Andy board the yacht that the auction is being held on. They play the part of a married couple and try to ignore the auction goers' disturbing conversations. Plus, they discuss the life of a negator, which, if you can infer from the previous arcs, is not very good. Discovering your negator ability is less like My Hero Academia and more like the X-Men, where you don't know what the hell just happened, and if you don't have someone to help you a la Charles Xavier, you're left figuring out your abilities and not knowing what to should or shouldn't do, leaving you vulnerable to being recruited for a cause that you could potentially die in or sold off into slavery. And Andy adds on to the conversation by mentioning he used to think there's only 3 paths ahead for Negator: accept their ability and lead their life, fall into despair and die, or double down and embrace a life of crime. But when he joined the Union, he believed they opened up a 4th path of taking the fight up to God and trying to fight for a better future. Meanwhile, on the top deck, 2 security guards asked the man who we saw torturing Unseen earlier to leave, as he and his female escort named Latla were approaching a restricted area. But of course he doesn't listen, as the man, who is later called Rib, easily disposes of the guards and calls this giant-ass whale named Cain to summon his remaining companions named Creed and Fang. Tatiana, who is watching the group from the side of the ship, warns Fugo and Andy over the radio about the group, and Junes explains that the group are called Negator Hunters, who, despite sharing the same goal of collecting Negators, although the hunters use force to do it, their objective is to seek revenge against the world. Fugo, Andy, and Tatiana all quickly move to find the hunters, who are heading to the cargo hold where the auction items are held. There, a young negator named Chikara has escaped captivity. We get a brief flashback on how he got kidnapped, as the auction-owned mafia seems to have similar information as the Union, as they singled out Chikara, who's the only one not speaking English. Remember, thanks to Nico taking out the Uma language, everyone who isn't a negator is only able to speak English and only English. He gets halted by a guard, but is rescued when Rip shows up and kills said guard, taking an interest in Chikara's ability Unmove, which allows him to hold anyone he's looking at as long as he stays still himself. Creed pulls out a minigun and tells Chikara to use his ability unless he wants to die, but Chikara is too scared to stay still. We also get more lore on negators, as it turns out when a negator dies, their abilities get transferred to a different human. We don't know how it gets transferred, although the current events in the manga came out with an explanation that I'm not going to disclose right now, so to be continued in a future video. Back to Chikara about to become Swiss cheese, he's saved by Andy, who blocks the bullets and quickly assesses the situation and the hunter's abilities. Rip slices Andy's neck with a scalpel and boasts his ability is causing wounds that won't heal or repair unless he dies. As is revealed, its name is called Unrepair. Well, I guess that mystery is solved. It's too bad that he's part of an organization that is hell-bent on world domination. He tells them to hand Chikara over so that the hunters can kill him and allow his ability to transfer to someone less cowardly. And the duo responds with Fuko chopping off Andy's head and tossing it towards Rip, while Andy thanks Rip for making the decision of including him into the Union all the more easier, as he delivers a massive headbutt to Rip. Tatiana comes crashing to the party and grabs Fang and Creed, telling Fuko and Andy she'll handle those two personally, before escaping into another room. During this fight, it's shown that Rip's Unrepair ability, while seems deadly to most, can potentially kill Andy, as he can easily cut off the section that is not affected by Unrepair and regenerate his limbs. So for example, when Rip sliced off Andy's hands, Andy chopped off the unrepaired nubs and used them as an offensive against Rip. But Latla is able to protect them using her ability, which seems to be future vision related, judging by this earlier conversation. Rip admits he's impressed by Andy and Fuko and even asks them to join his squad, but they both decline his offer, with Fuko saying they should take their anger out on God rather than the people of the world. Rip responds that they're not obligated to help the Union with their endeavor and throws another scalpel in Chikara's direction, but Fuko gets in the way to shield him, leaving Rip perplexed as to why she did that, and commenting she has about an hour left to live now. Andy is pissed to the point of Victor possibly resurging when he hears this, but Fuko reassures him the wound is not that bad thanks to him slowing its momentum earlier. Then, after several security guards arrive at the cargo hold, Rip and Latla escape, leaving Andy, Fuko, and Chikara behind. And Chikara gets his moment to shine as, despite being scared, he remembers the words his dying mother said to him that gave him the courage to activate his ability to save Andy and Fuko, just like how they did the same for him. Andy thanks him for the help and then picks Chikara and Fuko up so they can all catch and defeat Rip. A flashback then occurs, back when after Fuko and Andy joined the Union. In it, Titania challenged Andy to a fight inside Nico's lab in order to defend Gina's honor, which, like the flashback with Junez, is pretty understandable. Imagine the homie you knew for a certain amount of years gets killed and the people who did the deed are now part of your little friend group. I would be pissed off too. She believes Andy never understood Gina's true feelings, however Andy claims that he did and that's why he killed her. But that answer only infuriates Tatiana more. But he did cease the fighting by accidentally flashing in front of her eye camera. Let's just move on. Because of the accidental flashing, she temporarily loses control of her ability, and I wasn't kidding when I called her Atomic Bomb, as that metal suit keeps her ability locked in, and if she lets loose, she can easily destroy a whole town if released. Thankfully, Fuko is able to calm her down by admitting that she's responsible for Gina's death, and promising to make it up to her. It was honestly better that Fuko talks to Tatiana, as both have a lot in common, especially when it comes to their backstories and accidentally killing their parents. Tatiana's backstory is similar to a lot of negators, as one moment she was an ordinary girl celebrating her 5th birthday, and then the next being transferred an ability she didn't even want. The ability is called Untouchable, and you can guess what she negates, which is preventing anything that touches her, as the surface of her skin and body produces an untouchable barrier. It's like Gojo's Infinity, however unlike Gojo here, she's a compulsory activation type, meaning just like Fuko, she can't turn off her barrier and can crush and obliterate anything around her if she's in a high emotional state. When she obtained Untouchable, she caused massive damage to her childhood home and killed her parents. Feeling lost and confused, she didn't get far before the Mafia captured her and was to be put up to be auctioned off, but Billy came to rescue her. Instead of putting a gun in her mouth and pulling the trigger like she asked, he filled it with cake, as he figured out when she opens her mouth, a space is created in the area from which she could eat limited liquid food through a tube or a log narrow food. And keeping the similarities between Tatiana and Fuko, just like Andy did for Fuko, Billy gave Tatiana another chance to live, as he brought her into the Union and with some help from Nico, got a new body to move around in. and eventually made a new friend with Fuko, who understands more than anyone what it's not like to physically touch anyone without repercussions, with her later joining Tatiana in her room, telling her that she hopes one day they can shake hands as normal girls. After the flashback has ended, Andy tells Tatiana Fuko got injured by Rip. She warns Andy to get to the top deck as, oh shit, Tatiana's about to release her untouchable barrier.
Tactical nuke incoming!
I'm joking, it's actually more like this. Andy, Fuko, and Chikara are all blasted into the air along with Rip and Latla as the two parties prepare to continue the fight. During this fight, Rip figures the way Chikara's unmove works is he can negate the movement of objects in his field of vision, meaning something or someone that isn't in his line of sight can still move, which is why Andy could still fire a finger bullet. Chikara blinks and Andy's attack that froze earlier manages to hit Latla, but before Chikara has a chance to freeze them again, Rip launches himself higher into the air and uses a sick-looking artifact with a sick-looking name to fire a blade down below. It manages to cut Andy in half, but also allows him to climb up to Rip's new height. Rip reuses his strategy of launching himself higher and kicking down even more blades, but Chikara throws them this time now that he's not as scared anymore. Andy figures the only way to finish this fight is to find a workaround Latla's ability, as she's the one protecting Rip from severe injuries. So he needs to get close to Rip again, and Tatiana is able to help launch Andy and Co to Rip. Rip launches more blades at them, cutting up Andy to the point of only having one working arm, and making Fuko and Chikara fall, but Tatiana's untouchable barrier is able to save them. Andy finally is able to grab a hold onto Rip and proceed to carry out his plan. Andy's plan is to use Fuko's Unluck to send a meteorite to his location. He knew Latla's ability will prevent the meteorite from hitting Rip, but it'll still hit him as it sent him bouncing across the ocean's surface and then flying into the sky, sending him far from Rip's position. By distancing himself from Rip and Latla's line of sight, he's hoping to break through Latla's defenses as he only has one shot to pull this move off, because a normal finger bullet won't be enough to make a fatal wound on Rip. He would have to focus on generating all of the blood and calcium he has lost into his fingertip, and fire off a super pressurized finger bullet, but at the cost of dealing his regeneration after usage. If he misses, it's game over, but he has faith that Chikara will use his ability to freeze Rip in time to fire his shot. And that faith pays off when Rip arrogantly believes Andy has the desire to live for himself, and his unrepair will negate that desire the more he wants to live. He launches himself towards Chikara and Fuko to finish them off, but is once again frozen by Chikara. And because Rip's body blocked Andy from Chikara's point of view, Andy is able to take the Crimson Bullet shot and kill Rip. Yes, he actually killed him because he said that he could feel his body slowly regenerating, which is a little disappointing. He was a cool character, I was hoping to see more of him. What the fuck?
I thought you were dead.
My death was greatly exaggerated.
Yeah, I don't have an easy explanation on this other than Latla resummons Kane and leaves, making a promise that Rip won't die today, with the won't be in bold similar to how it was earlier when Rip got rid of those top deck guards. So it's implied Latla's ability played a major part in keeping Rip alive, but as to why he's a child, I have no clue other than maybe he went through a process similar to a phoenix. Anyway, he shows up several days later to where Andy and Fuko are and confirms for them that he did die. I guess you could say he was shot through the heart. I'll see myself out. Oh, wait, I can't. I still have to finish reviewing this. Andy punches Rip, feeling unsatisfied with the whole putting a bullet through his heart thing and wants to do more. But Rip stops him by saying he understood the reason why Andy's pissed. And that's why he's here, as he came to do two things: to give Fuko a gift and warn them about his group. After giving Fuko an artifact gun, she gets bombarded with a horrified vision of an opposing figure, and Rip explains that beating God would be impossible, so he and his group plan to dominate the world before God destroys it. And Andy voices my thoughts again by saying their reign will be short, but Rip is confident they will survive as they can go to the next step. A vague phrase that will be explained in the next arc. Just then, the duo receive warnings over their intercoms revealing various Union members are engaging against Negator hunters across the world. But this certain group has another name, as Rip reveals it to be Okay, 0 points for creativity. I know this manga has an ongoing theme of unnaming schemes, but there has to be another unword that works. Anyway, he warns them they plan on turning the world upside down in 3 months' time and extends the invitation to join his group again. But just like last time, the duo says no, and Rip wishes them good luck killing God. And I think this is the time to talk about this character. Rip is interesting to me as despite the torturing, attempted killing, and being the main antagonist of this arc, he's not that bad of a person. Okay, it's obvious he's more of an anti-hero than anything else. The fact he clearly respects Andy's fighting skills and Fugo's courage to the point he wants to recruit them, and even apologizing to Fugo and giving her a gift, a horrifying gift but still a gift regardless, says a lot about his character. Even his interactions with Latla are also interesting to me because it shows these two have known each other for a long time. Like, you do not have conversations like this unless you really know the person. As for Latla herself, other than caring about her appearance and protecting/caring for Rip when she needs to, that's all we have about her. But let's just say in a future arc, Tezuka wrote some scenes that will expand on her character more. And for the last character to have made into the spotlight this arc, Chikara, who despite being terrified out of his wits and being caught up in all this craziness, can gather the strength to use his ability when people rely on him. It's that strength Fugo saw to ask him to join the Union, with Chikara asking if they could give him a week to decide. Hence why Andy and Fugo are randomly out of school when Rip found them. They agree they don't plan on telling Judas about it as they don't want to get her hopes up for nothing. Plus, they wouldn't be surprised if he didn't join, as Fugo said earlier in this arc, life on Negator is already hard. Why add more from joining an organization you could potentially die in? Chikara approaches them after he gets off of school, but is put off by Andy inviting him to kill God as he realizes that he didn't exactly understand what he was getting himself into. Hey, Fugo, maybe next time you're trying to recruit someone, you include the God killing mission, just so they get the full picture. So naturally, Chikara does this.
Never mind! You can count me out!
He doesn't get too far though, and Andy asks if there's an empty classroom for them to talk about this. Once inside, Chikara asks to clarify things, and Andy reveals that the world will end in either April if the Union keeps up their losing streak, or January if the 100 penalty is enough to end it early. In response, Chikara explains that he has 2 things he needs to do: to live and atone. He explains that just like Fugo and Tatiana, he caused his parents' death when he was in middle school by accidentally freezing them in the middle of the road. His mother was barely clinging on to life after the incident, but before she passed, she told Chikara to be someone who can help others. But it was hard to do as the guilt of the incident weighs heavily on his shoulders to the point of having many thoughts of ending it all in hopes to see them again. But he knows they wouldn't want that and tries to keep living as he can. However, after meeting Fugo and Andy, he realizes he found what he was looking for, as he can use his powers to help others and make amends by joining the Union. So with his mind made up, there's only one thing left to do, and it's to say goodbye to his school friend Rio, who is blissfully unaware of the life-changing decision Chikara made. He thanks Rio for the memories of school they made, and expresses a desire to graduate alongside him if they manage to kill God. Rio tries to run after him, but by the time he gets to the car where everyone is seated, he has lost all memory of Chikara, as Chikara requested it so in order to protect his friend. This moment marks important for Fugo, as killing God became a personal goal for her, so people like Chikara can live normal lives, and to add fuel to her determination, she asks Andy to teach her how to fight. And so 3 months have passed and a new set of quests are now open, but the Union is going to come across something or someone they never expected to turn on them. This arc is all about
betrayal.
Under's plan finally coming into play, and a major revelation in the story that recontextualizes some scenes that have happened in the story so far. It starts with Apocalypse announcing the new set of quests, which has the 100 penalty at stake. Everyone, and I mean everyone on Earth, is allowed to participate, with the quest being the neutralization, with the exception of one, of the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. They have until the end of the month, and the penalty this time if they fail is the addition of Uma Revolution. The Union began to discuss their plan of attack before Billy asks can he have the floor for a second. He argues that since the 100 penalty is at stake, the quest will be likely very difficult, and they shouldn't risk losing more members so close to the 101st penalty. So he suggests defeating 3 out of 4 would be enough, and a simple plan on how to do that while minimizing risk. You drop a couple nukes on them. Yeah, because that never had negative major repercussions on our history. Everyone is caught off guard by this suggestion, with Tatiana saying that releasing a few nukes would cost so many innocent lives. But Billy retorts that the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many, or something like that, as he claims Eunice is far too naive to take on God, no matter how many times she's repeated. Keep this sentence in mind, it's gonna come into play later. So, if you can't already guess from the nuclear suggestion the sunny apathy of killing innocent lives, the traitor to the Union is none other than Billy. When I read this for the first time, I was more confused than anything else. Billy and Junas has the same goal of killing God. Couldn't they try to come up with a compromise on how they plan on taking God down together? Or is this a Magneto/Charles Xavier type of situation, where their philosophies are too different despite having the same goal? Well, let's just see what happens later on in the story, shall we? After firing off dozens of bullets, almost all of the members of the Union dodged them, with the exception of Ishin, who was badly injured. Shen and Andy quickly cornered Billy in a seat, thinking they could prevent Billy from causing any more damage. But they weren't prepared for a giant fire Uma named Bird rising from below the round table and extending to the top, with Billy monologuing that negators are forced to fight for the world at large. Why should they be concerned with innocent lives? They're gonna die anyway if they don't complete the quest on time, so they should be able to sacrifice the lives of the masses to achieve their goal. Otherwise, that would be rather unfair, now would it? And so while writing on the table, he reveals he's a member of Under. He'll be the one to kill God, is taking the round table to accomplish that. And to confirm his claims, we see Rip and Latla riding on Bird's head, who don't do much in this arc other than confirming something for me when it's revealed Rip and Latla joined Under because they have mutual interests with Billy, as they're interested in that. A vague term that will come into play later on. And out of everyone who was affected by the betrayal, it hit Titania the most that I'm surprised she didn't go full nuclear with the emotional roller coaster she went through this arc. But I guess she's more in shock and denial than anything else, as the only positive figure in her life turned on the Union, and no matter how she tries to deny it, Billy proves to her that everything he told her were almost a lie, as he's not only the head of Under when Rip calls him boss, but even his ability is a cover-up for what he can really do. Junas, Andy, and Shen made their way onto the round table and prepared to attack Billy, only to be brought to a halt when Billy seemingly uses Injustice on Junas to her shock, and uses Burn to swat them away. And it's not just he can use Injustice, but he can also use his Tops and Andy's abilities, so it's likely his true ability relates to copying other negators' abilities. How far into an extent this copying ability goes is something that will be discovered in a future arc. Billy extends a hand to Tatiana and requests she joins him as thanks for him saving her life, but is stopped by Fuko, who understands Tatiana's plight, as if the roles were reversed and Andy was the one who asked her to join, she would accept with no hesitation if she didn't come to know the members of the Union over the past several months. Additionally, she knows if Tatiana accepts Billy's offer, she will regret it for the rest of her life, as she will be in direct conflict with members she grew to know, including her first real friend. Since she didn't give him an answer, he claims they are now enemies and continues to ascend. Junas rallies the rest of the Union together, sending Shen and Phil to protect Union's artifacts, requesting Nico treat Ishin and Top's injuries and provide assistance in stopping Bird, assigning Chikara, who came back after calming his nerves down from seeing Bird, to use Unmoved to stop her bleeding. She also emphasizes the importance of getting the round table back, leaving that job to Fugo and Andy, who tells her that after everything gets settled again, she has a lot of explaining to do. Meanwhile, Fuko comforts a grieving Tatiana. She will try to bring Billy back for her, and as they approach Uma Burn, they resolve to talk things out with Billy and understand why he formed his own organization to achieve the same goal as the Union. Though Andy claims they also need to give him a knuckle sandwich first for making Tatiana cry. I'm with you on that one, Andy. When they reach the table, Billy activates Injustice on Fuko, which forces her to attempt to decapitate herself with Andy's sword. But Andy blocks the blade with his own neck, decapitating himself in the process, allowing Fuko to kiss him on the cheek and toss his severe head into Burn's mouth, allowing the unluck to occur in the form of electromagnetic cables misfiring and freezing Burn in its place. Though an unfazed Billy knows that they're only delaying the inevitable. Okay then, Billy, how about a giant pillar impaling Burn through the chest? Is that gonna stop it now? Oh, I guess not. Never mind. Andy runs down the pillar and delivers a severe punch to Billy that snaps his neck, but Billy was able to heal his wound with Undead's regenerative ability and uses Injustice on Fuko again to force her off the table, making Andy run after her. Luckily, Tatiana was able to catch them both as she seems to have snapped out of it and is heading to the top to stop Billy. Burn finally reaches the surface, bursting beneath Stone Edge to escape, and Tatiana plus the duo arrive at the round table themselves. Tatiana pleads for Billy for an explanation as to why he betrayed her, but he simply responds that the world will always be unfair, and that she means nothing to him. And despite everything that has happened with the betrayal, Tatiana still has feelings for him and uses this to her advantage when Billy uses Injustice on her, causing him to be distracted for a moment and giving Andy and Fuko a chance to grab Apocalypse as, without him, the round table is useless. Apocalypse tries to escape Fuko's grasp by overloading her mind with strange memories of the past, but he's ultimately unable to escape due to being caught by Phil, whose abilities unfill makes the trick ineffective. Billy admits defeat for now, as all he needs to do is grab Apocalypse by the end of December, and Under will be the first to secure something called the Arc. After he leaves and everyone else gets settled, Junes calls for an impromptu meeting at the site of the destroyed Stone Edge. And this is where the massive plot twist I alluded to earlier and way back in part 1 finally drops, as Junes reveals that the world is in a loop. More specifically, the world is in a constant cycle of being destroyed and recreated by God, and the reason why the Union is created is to put a stop to that. There are hints way back in the spoil arc when Andy mentions he found it a bit confusing that Junes was prioritizing strengthening forces and was pretty lax in handling quests despite how close they are to the end, and Shen backing him up, questioning Junes' familiarity with Victor despite learning from Andy that Victor hasn't been resurfaced for the past 200 years. Plus, when Victor first greets Shen after dealing with Spoil, he asks for the day of the week, even though Galaxy wasn't brought into existence yet. So the only logical conclusion is that he had to be in a world where a concept like days exists. And what world could he have lived in other than Earth? It also gives Fuko some clarity about the strange memories Apocalypse gave her, as those memories were from past loops. And as for the Ark, just like in the Christian Bible where it used to keep Noah, his family, and many animals from a worldly flood, Junes uses the Ark as a safety vessel while the world, blows up. It's why she's the only negator who knows about the loops and experiences them firsthand, while everyone else is clueless. This is what I meant in part 1 in my video when I put quotation marks on the pre and post time skip, because although a certain someone will board the Ark with memories from the past loop, everything else will be reset back to 0. As for proof, she reveals something that on my first initial reading I was like,
No way.
When she explains after the world is blown and recreated, fragments of the old Earth remain around the new one, and those fragments are actually the meteorites Fuko's Unluck have been summoning this whole time. Furthermore, Andy figures out how Victor was able to remember loops, as it's their ability of not being able to die that forces him to experience them, even when the world gets blown and recreated time and time again. And as to how Junes knows about Victor, it turns out they were close. Very close. To the point Junes knows Andy has a mole in the back of his right ear, which freaks Fuko out for a moment, but if anyone who should be awkward about this whole situation, it's Junes. Imagine your old lover becomes a brand new person and is interested in somebody else, but Junes states the relationship between her and Victor is ancient history, so good on her for moving on. Junes attempts to kneel before the others to express her apologies at keeping this secret, but everyone else says that it isn't necessary, as they'll probably do the same thing in her shoes. With everything out of the way, the meeting can now resume. Junes remarks that they must focus on finding Under's base, retrieving the round table, and detain Billy in addition to completing the quest. And as for Andy and Fuko, She has a special quest for them to locate a book that is penned by a certain artifact. Since Billy has rebelled and they're heading into the unknown, this book will assist them in clearing the 4 quests. And she is confident Fuko and Andy could do it, as this is a book Fuko personally knows, one that has been there since the first page of the manga. Yes! Oh my gosh, I love this arc. This is one of my top favorite arcs next to the spoiler arc and the upcoming future arc. The autumn arc deals with, the Uma Autumn, but most importantly, it develops Fuko and Andy's relationship more by revealing both Andy and Victor's past, ripping Lara back with their backstory, and it introduces my third favorite character of this manga besides our main duo here. So it turns out Fuko's all-time favorite manga, To You From Me, is the key on how to handle the Uma seasons, and Junes figures this out when one of the volumes involves a situation similar to how Junes dealt with the aliens. And if that wasn't coincidental enough, she found another set of volumes that eerily play out events similar to the spoil arc, so Junes wants the duo to investigate the manuscripts and the author. The only problem is, there's no information about the author and nobody knows how to contact them. So Andy decides the only way to get to them is to create a manga themselves and draw them out. This entire first part is like one big giant fourth wall break, but instead the characters talking directly to the audience is Tozuka using the characters to say, hey, this is the process on how the one-shot Undead Unluck was made. I love every moment of it. Fuko is the one who has to write the script for this, as she's the one with the most knowledge about shoujo manga. And while she went through the same process as I did when it comes to making her own story, she does get to writing, as she explains if she can do this, she might be able to understand her feelings about Andy more and bring in stronger strokes of unluck. With the help of the other members of the union, they finally made the manga, and you can guess what their name is as the fourth wall breaking continues when Fuko and Andy show up at Shueisha headquarters to submit the manga. Despite the criticisms she received from the interviewer, she received praise from them and was able to ask the interviewer to see the manuscripts. When the interviewer shows the manuscripts, Fuko discovers that it's written in Japanese and there's nothing written in them about Billy's defection. So she asks the interviewer if there's any scrap storylines, to which they say there are 3, and those 3 have details about Billy's betrayal, the 4 Uma seasons, and even Andy's past. Junes gives Fuko and Andy the go-ahead to contact the author, which Fuko does by swiping the interviewer's phone to call them. They agree to meet the both of them in the Stanley Bench in Canada in 5 hours. Emphasis on both of them, meaning the author knows about the duo and more than they're letting on. When they arrive in Canada, they sit on a bench and discuss strategies on how to deal with the author while they wait for them, which is where my third favorite character makes their grand appearance. Everyone, put your hands together for Ano Un! If there's one way to describe Ano Un is, they're a laid-back version of Deadpool where they know everything that's gonna happen and give zero fucks. The first thing we see them do is casually walking behind the duo, looking at Fuku's manuscript and commenting on it, catching the duo off guard. They know what the duo is here for, but won't give it away as it'll ruin the fun and their character development. They announce that the Autumn arc has officially begun as small segments of Autumn make their way towards them, but Ano easily disposes of them using an artifact pen named G-Liner. They state what the duo is going to do in this arc and wants to see if they can show them an ending they never saw coming. Realizing Autumn is here, Fuko and Andy run off to fight it, despite Ano's warnings about them being no match, as Autumn is going to be a major roguelike if they don't stop and train. And they are proven right when Andy's finger bullet doesn't even phase Autumn and would be in a worse situation if it wasn't for Ano cutting up their arm and making an Andy arm duplicate to distract Autumn and an airplane for retreat. At Ano's house, Ano contacts Junes to ask her if they can train the duo. I don't know why they're asking her, she's not their mom, but she declines the offer at first but changes her mind when Fuku tells Junes she trusts Ano, and Andy wants to learn about his past to become stronger. So Ano's plan is to recreate Autumn's power of turning people into books and use it on Andy. Once that happens, they use an artifact named Soul Caliber to suck Fuku's soul inside an object and put her inside Andy's tall book stack. Here, we see a different side of Andy as he's seen being more quiet and serious. Hell, he doesn't even smile in this entire backstory, something that Fuko noticed during her journey with Andy after she realizes what her purpose was in this backstory. and that's to witness Andy meeting and saying goodbye to numerous people in his life in a short montage. And even though he can't die, he acts more of a zombie here than anything, as Fugo comments how it felt like eons passed in a blink of an eye, but it's not a you're having too much fun type of blink. It's more Andy probably dissociated from the world to the point of not being aware of time kind of blink. However, Fugo does eventually get answers from Andy's perspective when one night Andy asks her what it means to die. This is something he probably believed in since the beginning, as for him, he takes more of a literal and logical approach of when your brain stops working. If you can't think, you're dead, right? However, Fugo believes it's when people stop remembering you that you're truly dead. A concept I believe in and is explored in other media such as What Remains of Edith Finch and Coco. She explains to Andy that when her parents died, like him, she thought that they were dead because she couldn't see them anymore. But she realizes if she remembers the memories of her parents, they'll continue to live on inside her heart and become a motivator to keep on living. Something that Andy actually unconsciously did at the beginning of the story when, after the tragic death of his comrades, he orders the women responsible for their deaths to do a ritual on their graves every time they release a new beer. Andy actually smiles for the first time after Fugo's explanation, and it's also during this conversation Fugo realizes her love for Andy before she starts to fade away into another memory. But she gets intercepted by Victor, who wants to erase Fugo's soul so he can take over Andy in a moment of weakness and kill Junes. Andy gets pretty far, to the point Fugo lands in the moment where she meets Andy for the first time, which is on August 1st, 2020. Hey, that's my birthday!
Nice!
Victor's attempts to kill Fugo are thwarted by the Andy that will chronologically meet her, who uses his interactions with Fugo when he was living in the western area to go toe-to-toe with Victor, to the point of weaponizing Fugo's unluck and part of his soul into his finger bullets, as he now believes it's the soul that gives people life, so it doesn't matter how his body gets destroyed, he'll come back from it. This statement brings Victor to a memory with Junes as she talks about souls and reincarnation, a concept that plays off in the future with the current arc, so keep this moment in mind. They finally managed to subdue Victor in the same capsule that contained Andy in the first chapter, but Fugo wants to talk to Victor since he's a part of Andy and he's right here. Might as well have a chat with him. After Victor breaks open the capsule, Fugo questions his relationship with Junes because it seems paradoxical. He wants to kill her, but in the memories Fugo saw, they seemed close. But it's because of that closeness that Victor wants to kill her. He explains in the beginning, killing God seems simple, but the more they loop, the more Victor believes killing God is a pipe dream as they keep running in circles. But Junes still keeps going. She still gathers allies, she still gathers artifacts, and she still keeps going because she figured by employing the best options one by one, she would reach and kill God. However, she can only go so far. She's not immortal, and the last thing Victor wants to see is the woman he loves suffering. It's such a nihilistic and tragic moment that you completely understand where he's coming from. But after seeing the display the duo made with evolving their abilities, he changes his mind. The unluck that hit him wasn't just physical damage, but transformed into unluck that is personalized for the target. So he theorizes if she researches and grasps a better understanding of God, her unluck might be enough to do them in. So he said he'll no longer interfere with the duo and union, and tells Fugo that if she wants to get back outside, she'll have to kiss Andy on the lips. To which she does, and before she completely disappears, the Andy in the past tells her he'll merge with the real Andy, making him better equipped for the fight with Autumn. And the Great Moments train keeps on chugging as we get Ano Un's, or his real name, Akira Kuno's backstory. Out of everyone's Negator backstory we've seen, I think his is the cruelest. Yes, it's hard not being able to physically touch the people you care about without repercussions, or accidentally freezing people on the spot with both your eyes. But just one day picking up a G-pen that looks cool, getting flooded with visions of a story, and running off to tell your single mother about this story, only to discover that everyone, including her, can no longer see or hear you, believing that you have disappeared, that's just brutal. And to add more fuel to the fire, Junes later theorizes that the Genolighter is cursed with unknown by God to prevent anyone from subverting their fun. I'll give Tezuka this, he's doing a great job establishing this god as the main antagonist and why this should be taken out, as this backstory here solidifies my investment in seeing this god fall. Instead of falling into despair, he remembers his mother's desire to stay alive and the determination for the characters he saw, to write a story hoping it would reach his mother someday, as that's the true origin from To You From Me. As the title suggests, it's Akira's way of reaching out to his mom. However, it wasn't long before he questioned if the story he got from the pen were real, and out of curiosity, checked out a location where Andy was training samurai quick draws. When he saw that the characters he thought were fiction are real, he began to worry as the visions he saw show a terrible end if one event didn't occur. So he decided to 1. Include details about the future in To You From Me with the exception of the 3 scrap arcs, and 2. Research and gather everything he needs in order to help the duo and prevent the horrible event from occurring. What is this horrible event? Well, it happens when Rip confronts Akira about his prophesizing vision. But like with the duo, he isn't good to spill and is more than ready to throw down in order to protect an unconscious Fugo. And while all that chaos is happening, Sean, or as we know him as Unseen, sneaks over to Fugo to kill her in order to rise in the ranks of Under. But thanks to Akira warning Andy, Andy kills Unseen and saves Fugo. This is the horrible event Akira saw in his visions because without him being there, Fugo gets killed and everyone dies in the future. Well, Victor will still be alive, but everyone else will die. Akira's actions alter the future as not even him can predict what will happen next, but is confident the duo will defeat Autumn and whatever else comes their way. The fight continues with Rip and another character named Bunny battling with the duo. However, Fugo tries to convince Rip they should take down Autumn together since they have the same goal. But Rip explains that all the Under members have various end goals, with him and Latla being able to ride that being the Arc, and they plan to use it to save the one person they failed, despite Akira warning him he can't and will lose more if he does. Someone who, just like the rest of the Negator's backstories, died because of Rip and Latla's awakened Negator abilities. Her name is Layla, Rip's lover and Latla's younger sister. While the flashbacks don't show much, it does give an insight on Rip and why he takes on an antagonistic role. The reason being that Layla always thought of him as a hero, and when she died, he had to become a villain in order to get where he is. If he goes back on this path and becomes a hero, he considers that a betrayal to Layla and is willing to risk it all for her. Same with Latla, who informs the group that Autumn is approaching their location due to the previous Andy Tall book stack. So, because it will be more of a hassle to deal with later, Rip is forced to a temporary truce and fight Autumn. Akira continues to be the MVP of this arc as he draws a time-changing artifact to age Rip back to his normal age, but at the cost of aging the Anno avatar by 150 years, destroying the avatar, G-Liner, and Akira's own way of communicating to the outside world. Rip is baffled by his decision and tries to reverse the process, but Akira says he has no regrets. He did everything he set out to do and possibly regrets not seeing his mom one more time before she passed away. But on a bittersweet note, it's revealed the story that Akira was hoping to reach his mom finally did without knowing the author. So, farewell Akira Kuno, you may not be physically seen, but after this moment, nobody will forget you. After working together to defeat Autumn, Rip collects Soul Calibur and lets the duo keep Autumn's core, mostly because of what Akira did and knows he'll get you out later for letting Sean die. Fugo tries once again to convince Rip to join them, however, Rip states he wants the Ark, which Junas will never let him near, so he's opting to steal it from her. After saying goodbye to Under, Fugo understandably passes out on Andy, who gives their report to Junas about the Autumn Quest and Akira. Junas then tells the duo to head to Taiwan to find Summer, where Shen is already there waiting for them. After the call, she uses move to visit a friend. That friend being Billy, who is chilling in Winter's turf. The reason he's there is because he's holding Winter as a hostage. The plan is to wait out while the Union complete the other quest, so by the time they get to Winter, he can use the round table as a bargaining chip in exchange for the Ark. Junas didn't come by to Billy for that, but rather to tell him a few things. G's come to reach a compromise for Billy, the artifacts were created by God to defeat them, and the Ark is capable of only one more trip, meaning the next time they failed, that's it, they're done. And this one line feels like it was made for Rip when Junas states the Ark only has one seat, making Akira's statement about losing more, including Latla, all the more true. Billy is frustrated by all this as he questions why she didn't share the burden with everyone, to which Junis responds that someone did know once, Victor. But he tried to kill her for her sake, and it's implied that she created Andy as she did something to Victor and wanted to see the person she loved smile again. She carried everything alone out of guilt, but Billy's betrayal made her change her previous stance. She states that while Billy is qualified to go to the next loop, she believes Fuko will be a better candidate. This leads into a fight where both opponents use Bird and Spoil respectively to duke it out while they fight themselves. The fight ends with Junis getting her arm cut off by Billy's injustice. Billy claims he intended to betray Junis from the start as the members were just ammo to slay God, which seems BS because we get panels of the other members of the Union and one long panel of meeting Tatiana for the first time. I've betrayed you, but I secretly haven't. Senses are growing up from this. Junis is forced to retreat from the fight and tells Nico and his daughter Miko, who were there when she landed, to not tell anyone about this incident. Meanwhile, Billy asks his old friend Tella to radio in Fang, who is en route to Summer, and tells him that Undead is taking Unluck by any means necessary. And this is where I'm going to stop for now because the next 3 arcs have a lot to cover as it's heading towards the end of the pre-time skip era. I plan on releasing that video somewhat soon, so be on the lookout for that and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss it when it premieres. Be sure to like, comment, and ring the bell to be notified when my next video comes out. Hope you have a decent day and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
Take a deep breath